But what nobody expected was what happened next, because the moment Tom Brady spoke out, more names started surfacing inside the Cleveland Browns organization, and suddenly, Jerry Jeudy wasn't the only one
so late in the draft.
It's a good question. I wouldn't have part of any evaluation process or to
Skip Bayless
see
says
that.
otherwise.
That's a problem with media is everyone can just say whatever the fuck they want. I actually texted Shedeur because I know him very well. And I said, dude, whatever happens, wherever you go, that's your first day. Day 2 matters more than the draft. I was 199. Who could speak on it better than me? Like what that really means. Use it as motivation. You're going to get your chances. Go take advantage of it.
Tom Brady just publicly destroyed Jerry Jeudy. And it's all because Judy's hidden agenda against Shedeur Sanders finally leaked. This isn't speculation. This isn't a rumor. The receipts are out. Brady saw them, and he went scorched earth. Nobody in the NFL saw this coming. Not the analysts, not the front offices, not even Judy himself. Brady has been quiet for months, calculated, measured like always. But the moment this information hit the surface, he was done playing nice. And what he said, it didn't just call Judy out, it blew the entire situation wide open.
Check out this clip of Tom Brady explaining why Shedeur went 5th round in the draft.
Why did he go so late in the draft?
It's a good question. I wouldn't have part of any evaluation process or nobody knows. And I actually texted Shedeur because I know him very well. And I said, dude, like whatever happens, wherever you go, that's your first day. Day 2 matters more than the draft. I was 199.
Yeah.
So who could speak on it better than me? Like what that really means. Use it as motivation. You're going to get your chances. Go take advantage of it.
I know he will make everyone pay for skipping him. Let me know how you feel in the comments.
All right, let's back this all the way up. Because if you jump straight to Brady going nuclear without understanding the full timeline, you're going to miss why this moment is so much bigger than just 2 NFL names beefing. This goes deep, and I mean deep. It started quietly, the way all the most dangerous things in the NFL do. No headlines, no press conferences, just whispers moving through draft circles like smoke. Subtle, hard to pin down, but impossible to ignore once you started smelling it. And the whispers all pointed in one direction. Jerry Jeudy had a problem with Shedeur Sanders. Not a football problem, not a scheme fit problem, a personal problem. The kind of problem that makes a wide receiver, a guy whose entire job is to catch passes, start inserting himself into quarterback evaluation conversations he had absolutely no business being in. Now think about that for a second. Why would Jerry Jeudy care which quarterback the Cleveland Browns draft? He's not a scout, he's not a coordinator, he's not even a team captain with decades of organizational clout. He's a pass catcher. His job is to run routes and get open. Full stop. So when sources inside the Browns building started noticing that every single time Shedeur Sanders came up in pre-draft discussions, there was always friction, always some reason to slow walk the conversation, and those friction points kept connecting back to Judy's inner circle, that's not a coincidence. That's a pattern, and patterns tell stories. Here's what was reportedly going down behind closed doors. Judy's camp, his people, his guys, the ones with access to the right ears in the front office, were quietly pushing a specific narrative about Shedeur. Not about his arm talent, which everyone who's watched film knows is elite. Not about his football IQ, which scouts on both sides of the argument openly acknowledge is off the charts. No, the narrative Judy's camp was pushing was about fit, about locker room presence, about whether Shedeur Sanders was the type of leader that Cleveland needed. Vague enough to sound professional, specific enough to plant doubt. That's the move. That's how you kill a prospect without leaving fingerprints. And it was working. For a while, it was absolutely working. You could see it in how Browns beat reporters were framing their mock drafts. You could hear it in the language analysts were using. Talked about Cleveland's quarterback situation. Always hedging. Always leaving the door open for someone other than Shedeur. The doubt had been seated. The narrative was spreading. And Shedeur, who had done everything right, posted elite numbers at Colorado, showed out at the Combine, handled every media moment with the kind of composure that makes veteran coaches drool. was watching his stock get quietly chipped away by someone who didn't even play his position. But here's where it flips, and this is the part that changes everything. Tom Brady was watching. Tom Brady is always watching. The man spent 2 decades reading defenses before the snap. You think he can't read a coordinated smear campaign when he sees one? Brady has been deeply embedded in NFL circles post-retirement, consulting, investing, building his ownership portfolio, and he has relationships with people across every franchise in the league. So when the whispers about Judy's involvement started reaching his level, when people Brady actually trusts started connecting the dots and putting names to the noise, Brady didn't pick up the phone and handle it quietly. He didn't send a text. He didn't have someone else carry the message. He went public, deliberately, strategically, the way only Tom Brady can. On a widely watched podcast appearance, Brady went in. And when I say went in, I mean he dismantled Judy's entire position without ever needing to scream or lose his composure, because Brady doesn't need volume to be devastating. He laid out exactly what he'd been hearing, exactly what kind of behind-the-scenes manipulation had been happening, and he made it crystal clear that in his view, what Judy's camp had been doing to Shedeur Sanders was not just unprofessional, it was a direct threat to the integrity of the draft process itself. Brady said, and I'm paraphrasing here because the full quote needs its own moment, that when veteran players start using their organizational relationships to influence how young quarterbacks are evaluated, it poisons the well for every kid coming up who earned his shot on merit. He didn't just throw Judy under the bus, he reversed over him, then did it again. The internet went absolutely sideways within minutes of the clip dropping, and Judy? Silent. Not a word, not a tweet, not a story on Instagram, nothing. Because what do you say when Tom Brady calls you out by name and the receipts are already floating around the locker room? Now hold on, because it gets worse for Judy. Once Brady opened the door, other voices started stepping through it. Former players, draft analysts, even a couple of journalists who had been sitting on pieces of this story started connecting in real time on social media. The picture that emerged was uglier than even the initial reports suggested. This wasn't just Judy being territorial about his role on the offense.
A calculated effort to protect a certain vision of the Browns' future, one that apparently didn't include a high-ceiling quarterback who might demand the ball in ways that shifted the offensive hierarchy. Translation, Judy didn't want competition for touches disguised as a franchise quarterback. He wanted a system that kept him comfortable. And Shedeur Sanders, dynamic, aggressive, the type of QB who elevates pass catchers when he's given the right support, apparently wasn't the comfort candidate. Which is insane. Let's just sit with that for a second. Because any wide receiver with working football knowledge understands that your value as a pass catcher skyrockets when you have an elite quarterback distributing the ball. Jerry Rice wasn't Jerry Rice without Joe Montana and Steve Young. Tyreek Hill didn't become a generational weapon until Patrick Mahomes started throwing him the ball. The idea that a wide receiver would work against landing a high-caliber QB because of some internal political calculation is so backwards, so short-sighted, that it almost defies explanation. Almost. Except it makes complete sense when you factor in ego, insecurity, and a veteran receiver who's been in Cleveland long enough to have a very specific comfort zone he doesn't want disrupted. And here's the real gut punch, the thing that makes this story resonate far beyond Cleveland, far beyond this draft class. Shedeur Sanders did everything right. Everything. He put up historic numbers at Colorado under a microscope that no college quarterback in recent memory has had to perform under. Every game, and I mean every single game, was a national event. Cameras on his dad, cameras on his brother, cameras on every incomplete pass, every sack, every third down conversion. He handled it. Not just handled it, he thrived in it. That's the kind of pressure that breaks most people. Shedeur turned it into fuel. And then he gets to the pre-draft process, the one time in a young player's life when it should be purely about football evaluation, and he runs into a coordinated campaign from inside one of the franchises he's being evaluated by. Let that sink in. The kid beat the external pressure. He cleared every hurdle the media threw at him, and the one thing that tried to slow him down came from inside the building, from someone who should have been a future teammate. But here's what Judy and everyone running that quiet campaign fundamentally miscalculated. They underestimated who Shedeur Sanders is, and more importantly, they underestimated who was paying attention. Tom Brady didn't just go on that podcast to defend Shedeur out of sentiment. Brady went on that podcast because he recognizes a generational quarterback talent being sabotaged by small thinking, and that offends everything Brady built his legacy on. The greatest winner in NFL history has zero patience for politics that get in the way of winning. And when Brady sees a quarterback with Shedeur's tools, the pocket presence, the arm, the football IQ, the composure, being undermined by locker room maneuvering, he doesn't stay quiet. He never has. That's not slowing down. Front office executives across the league are now under renewed scrutiny about how much influence veteran players actually have in pre-draft evaluation processes, a conversation the NFL has tried to avoid having for years because the answer is uncomfortable. Players absolutely have informal influence. It just usually doesn't surface this clearly or this publicly. Brady forced the conversation into daylight, and now everyone from team owners to the commissioner's office has to at least pretend they're taking it seriously. As for Shedeur Sanders, here's what you need to understand about where he stands right now. This entire situation, as ugly as it's been, has done something unexpected. It's galvanized support around him in a way that no highlight reel or combine measurement ever could. When Brady goes to war for you publicly, it sends a message to every franchise evaluating your tape. It signals that the people who know football at the highest possible level are not just watching you, they're invested in seeing you succeed. That's not a small thing, that's a massive thing. Franchise decisions have been shaped by less. The teams picking at the top of this draft now have to ask themselves a very direct question. Do you want the quarterback Tom Brady just publicly staked his reputation on? Or do you want to be on the other side of that call? Because history, and Brady has more of it than anyone, tends to vindicate the people Brady backs. So, where does this leave Jerry Jeudy? Exposed, publicly, by the GOAT, with no comeback, no defense, and a locker room situation in Cleveland that just got significantly more complicated. Whatever Judy was trying to protect by running that campaign against Shedeur, he has now lost far more than he could have possibly gained. His reputation as a teammate just took a direct hit. His relationship with whatever quarterback Cleveland ultimately drafts is starting on a cracked foundation, and his name is now permanently attached to one of the more embarrassing pre-draft controversies in recent memory. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders keeps moving forward, head up, focused, the way he always has. Is this the NFL finally being forced to confront the hidden politics that shape which quarterbacks get real opportunities? And does Shedeur Sanders represent exactly the kind of threat to the old guard that makes powerful people uncomfortable enough to try to tear him down before he even takes a snap? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know exactly where you stand on this. And if you want to stay ahead of every story the mainstream won't touch before anyone else does, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe and stay locked in.